Call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. All members are present. Approval of the agenda. Is there any changes? Vicki? Council?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Oh.
Second by Shylin.
Yeah.
Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the August 7th, 2024 regular meeting. I'll receive them in your packet. Is there any changes or corrections needed to those minutes? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 7th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Diane. Do I-
Second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Aye. Motion carries 4 in favor, none against, 1 abstention. This now brings us to our public open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? If so, you have 3 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
Matthew Schmitz, Sauk Center. If your police department had simply taken the name of the woman from Alexandria and typed it into their system, they would have seen her criminal record. They would have seen an active harassment restraining order, a history of domestic violence, and that she had no driver's license. They should have arrested this woman when she drove from Alexandria to pick up this child with no driver's license. And that restraining order, the woman was to have no contact with 3 children that the petition stated she was threatening to kidnap. This is the woman that your police department asked to come and pick up the child instead of taking the child to a licensed foster care. I have here a witness statement done by the law offices of Brandt and Ketwick. In it, a third party involved in the child's life stated that the social worker, Kelly Lurkin, had already investigated this woman and determined her home to not be fit for fostering this child less than 3 weeks prior to this placement. After the child's allegation of abuse, there was a meeting between your officer, Dustin Von Walde, the county, and the Stearns County Attorney's Office. They discussed how they could cover up this child's allegation. They agreed that the best way to control the situation was by allowing these children to continue to have inappropriate relationships. Dustin Von Walde was there. He agreed not to file a police report or to investigate this child's allegation that they were abused in the city of Sauk Center. Because of his actions, this child was abused again. Yet you continue to sit there silent. You continue to ignore this issue. We now have to ask, do you condone a police officer covering up a child's allegation of abuse? Do you condone a police officer encouraging children to have inappropriate relationships? Do you condone a police officer not taking responsibility for placing a child in danger, neglecting their duty as an officer, and participating in corruption with the Stearns County? Thank you.
Mr. Schmitz, I got one question for you.
Yes, sir.
What is your actual legal address?
My legal address?
Legal address, mailing address,
Why do you want that?
because it's a public forum and
You-
Sauk Center isn't,
Numerous and several participants come here to the meeting without stating.
they're
their
all
address.
state their addresses.
No, they haven't.
Yes,
I
they
can
do.
state specific city council meetings in which they have not stated
Okay,
their
fine.
address. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the city council? Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council? Public open forum is now closed. We have no public hearings. We will move on to reports and presentations. Police Department monthly report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I got the July report in your packet there. As you can see, we were steady. 1,200 ICRs total. Some of the highlights, it's 21 medicals, 530 traffic stops. Those are just the warnings. Out of some of those traffic stops, 62 speeding tickets, 20 citations for cell phone use, 11 DWIs, 16 no driver's license, either DARs or driving after cancellations or wrong class of license type. 4 people went to jail for disorderly conduct, either fighting or being loud, offensive in public, along with a handful of assaults and fair amount again of our behavioral health situations that are kind of a daily thing for us. Some of those will get labeled mental health calls, some behavioral health, some welfare checks. It all kind of depends. More it falls down to how the dispatcher labels it basically for this report. Some of the highlights for the month of July, Sinclair Lewis days, that all went smooth. We had good crowds Friday and Saturday during the day. I think it was a smaller than usual crowd for the street dance, which kept our call load down there. And then we had the fair at the end of the month. Again, the fair, I think, because a handful of circumstances, the numbers were just down at the fair, so were our calls for service. We had it manned real well, and the people just didn't show up due to, I think, the weather and that whole ride drama and stuff. But we had a few calls, but nothing crazy. Yeah, so July was busy, but pretty smooth as far as no major issues. Any questions or?
Any questions, concerns?
Joe, this guy comes in here, all our meetings, and he makes all these accusations against the police department. Now, I know what this is about, and I know it was investigated by the Child Protective Services. You did nothing wrong. Your department did nothing wrong. But this guy keeps coming in and making all these accusations.
Yeah, it's freedom of speech.
I know,
So anybody
but-
can come in here, we'll let them.
But to me, his problem is not with the police department, it's with Child Protective Services. Why don't he take it up with them, with the county?
And I'm
That's
sure
where
he
the problem
is.
should be.
I'm sure he is. Like I said, it's
Okay.
a
Okay.
down issue on my end, so.
Thank you, Joe.
It's within his constitutional right to come in here,
Yeah.
voice his opinion, and I support his freedom to do that, and we'll let him do that. But on my end of things, it's a non-issue.
I know. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Public Works Department, Ben?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This past month, our 1-ton truck has arrived back from J-Craft with the new plow and stainless box on it, so that truck turned out really nice. In September here, we plan to sell the current truck with the plow and box that truck replaced, so we'll send that down the road. We did find a storm sewer line by Fastenal that has a charter cable that was bored through it, so we're working with Charter to get a plan to get that fixed. Working on tree removal and maintenance around our storm sewer outlets. We did have several boulevard trees and park trees that had to be cut down due to Dutch elm disease was the main cause this go around. These have been removed and the stumps were all ground. One of the trees was by the beach. In that spot we did have some water issues, so we built that up and reseeded it with grass and put erosion blanket on it to get the water to flow out to that rain garden by the boat landing. So that's now done. Arena, we had a couple events up there, rental events, no issues during those rentals, everything went good. Fitness Park had a bad switch in one of the sensors for the start-stop timer that was replaced and fixed. If you guys are around the splash pad area, we do have a demo GPS mower that's working on the east half of the grass area. So this is just a test setup with a company that we're trying out, no cost test or anything, just kind of seeing how it goes and how it works. So far it's been working well. We did some grass prep and sod installation around the fire department memorial in the front park. Replaced the bench tops at the JC Park. Working inside the outdoor skating rink building, making some general building repairs and upgrades in there. The arena, we took a rain day to prep the wall for advertising signs to be hung up for the season. Compost and brush pile area continues to see a lot of use and drop-offs. We did have to burn the pile this month, and the new pile is quickly growing already. Campground, we did have one underground fitting break that leaked for a short time before being repaired. That was on one of the main water lines feeding the seasonal sites. So that's now fixed. And then just today at Highway 71, if you drove past Casey's, there's a water main break up there. So they're working on fixing that right now, but that'll be kind of shifted over. The lanes are shifted over for the next day or two until we can get that totally repaired. Any questions I can answer?
Questions?
Not a question as much as a comment. I know I told both you and Vicky this. I kind of dumped my family off for the better part of last week at the campground. I was there some of the time. But I just, the amount of compliments from other people when I told them that I was on the council, people were staying, I went a long way. Like, people were very complimentary of our campground, and we enjoyed being there. So
Good.
thanks for all the work that gets put into it.
Good to hear.
You don't appreciate it until you're actually staying there, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
City engineer update?
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Not too many things, just one thing came up today, Author's Edition. We did learn just today that there's some issues with the hydrants that are out there. There's usually a little drain plug that is supposed to be left out of them. They're not supposed to come that way. Unfortunately, they did come that way. That's meant for if they're in groundwater, so they don't have water coming into them. Anyway, we learned that they are plugged, unfortunately. The contractor didn't catch it. We didn't catch it that they were plugged. We don't normally come that way. So there is going to have to be a warranty issue to have those, there's 4 of them out there dug up. There might be a way that we can do it from the inside. That's being discussed, whether it can be done without actually having to dig the hydrant up. But they may need to be dug up. That might mean a couple panels of sidewalk get removed and replaced. But it's a warranty issue, and the contractor's been notified, and we're working on that issue. It just needs to be resolved before we get to winter, or at least the PUC has to make sure that they pump them down. Because if water's inside, obviously it can freeze in the wintertime, so they have to get pumped out in the wintertime if they're plugged. So anyway, there's just a new thing that just came up today, so we're dealing with that little issue and get that one taken care of. The truck stop, basically it's done with the exception of the stockpile up there. Still has to get shaped and pushed down. That dirt is going to stay there, but it does need to get shifted around. It's going to be much lower than the pile that you see now and get shaped up and through there. And that hasn't been completed as of yet, but the material will be staying there on site. So that's where that project's at. Otherwise, the 2025 project, we're just kind of waiting for a public hearing, which is on the 11th, and go through that and see how that one goes. But any questions you have for me?
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to action items. 7A, approve resolution 2024-66, authorizing minor subdivision 1.
So Cody Nelson, who is the developer of the Gulfview Addition, has requested that the lot splits of the constructed twin homes be approved at this time, which will allow for individual sale. He's built 5 homes. 2 of the homes we've already split before. And now this before you and these 3 action items, 7A, 7B, and 7C, are all 3 separate resolutions for each of the 3 remaining lots to split them into 2. The surveyor did provide the survey to put the property line in the party wall that separates the 2 buildings. And so what we're looking tonight to do is to approve those 3 resolutions, 2024-66, 67, and 68, approving the minor subdivisions of lots 1, 2, and 3, Block 1, Gulfview Addition.
Questions? Concerns? We had done the same thing with his other units
yeah.
that he had
Yeah.
done up there, so.
I'll make a motion to approve all 3.
Okay, I have a motion by Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7D, approve resolution 2024-69, approving purchase of radios.
Chief Jensen has submitted a request for the purchase of 2 portable radios for use by the police department. This is a budgeted item. We sought quotes for the purchase. We had one return, actually, the same company returned 2 quotes for 2 different models. Motorola Solutions, the cost was $11,238.84. They also submitted a quote for another radio style at $10,110.22. However, that model is not compatible with our other equipment. So what we're looking to do is to approve the purchase of the APX 6000 series radios for $11,238.84. And that's Resolution 2024-69, authorizing the purchase of radios from Motorola Solutions.
Questions, concerns? It is a budgeted item, so do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2024-69?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Shallen,
I'll second.
second by Joe. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Unfinished business, land acquisition, airport.
This is just kind of an update on that airport land acquisition project that the airport board has been working on. As you know, we continue to work forward on that proposal to purchase the home. It's located in the airport safety zone and is part of the runway protected zone. Because it was in the airport's long-term CIP plan for purchase within the next 15 years, the FAA authorized the city to proceed sooner when the owner of that property approached the city with a proposal to sell. The FAA's involvement is because if certain procedures are followed, the city is eligible for reimbursement from the FAA for a percentage of the cost. A purchase price was agreed to for the purchase of property. You guys had that here at a city council meeting some time ago for $440,000. And then the seller proceeded to purchase a new home. Under the FAA guidelines, the seller is also entitled to payment for certain closing costs and moving and relocation expenses, and they proposed an all-in settlement. The airport board did not agree to the amount of the all-in settlement request, and the counteroffer was submitted. The board is now requesting a sit-down in-person meeting with the sellers and their attorneys, because we keep going back and forth, and we kind of want to resolve this. There's a big gap between that original purchase price and the all-in settlement that we proposed and the one that they proposed. So we're trying to resolve that. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks.
Any questions? Okay. New business, consider contribution to Independent School District 743 for the tennis court rehab.
So Mayor Stone was contacted by the public school superintendent with a request to participate in the rehab of the school tennis courts. The school contracted with the company to rehab and paint the courts at a cost of $110,000. The request from them was that the city would contribute $25,000 toward the rehab for the pickleball. The park board had previously discussed pickleball court following a request by players. However, at that time, it didn't get any traction because it wasn't in our long-term capital plan, and the board was skeptical of entering into a project that competed with private business. And so I'm asking you tonight about discussing whether you should contribute toward the rehab, identify where those come from. I just want to remind you or advise you that there's no statutory authority for the city to donate funds to a school, but there is statutory authority to spend funds for public recreation purposes in a public partnership. So there is a way that we can contribute specifically for that purpose. We could not just give money to the school, but we could give for that, but then it would be known that it is open to the public as well. And it has been. It's just that that's something that it has to be a part of that. And I just wanted to remind you of that. So I do have a picture of the old course courts, which I talked about was the private place that you could go. It hasn't been open real steady this year. I think they're doing some work down there. And then a picture of the school courts, and then of course a picture of the refurbished courts. There are 4 of those courts that are painted for pickleball. So I guess what I'm asking you tonight, or what Mayor Stone brought forward, was for a full discussion of the council of whether you wanted to come up with $25,000 to help pay for the painting of the pickleball on the court.
Questions? Concerns?
I think in light of the past discussion that the park board had discussed and didn't think that it was a good idea at the time, the cost at that time would be considerably less than going in the partnership with the school at the $25,000 rate. I don't remember the actual numbers of a completely.
We never, what happened back then was we had a couple of people had come to the board and talked about wanting
wanting the city to proceed with some type of development of courts, and they looked at different areas where it could be. We never really got to a good budget number. We kind of went and looked at some other courts, like in Alexandria and whatnot, but then it kind of fell flat after that because it wasn't something that we really had in our long-term plan, and at that time it was like, well, if we're going to do it, then let's get it in our plan and work through it that way. We didn't have a number yet, though, to know what that might cost us.
Well, just comparing the refurb and paint for the school's cost was 110.
My thought is, we don't have this budgeted for 2024. I mean, it equates to basically 1% of our levy, or they're a little about above that from where we were last year. And, you know, so I have a hard time paying to refurbish the tennis courts at the school, as it has the ability to tax and collect from city residents on the property taxes as well, and put a greater concentration on the city taxpayers for, you know, the entire district by contributing to that. And, realistically, $25,000, we've got an obligation to our own city-owned facilities as far as, you know, the warehouse, the shop down there, and, you know, other improvements that we got within our buildings that $25,000 can go towards. So I'm not in support of that, this contribution.
Okay, any other comments?
I guess the one thing that I would say, I hear more from people about pickleball than I hear most other things when it comes to park requests. So, I mean, if we did something like this, I mean, this is for sure less than doing our own pickleball court. And then the other, like when we were having the discussion at the park board level about the fitness park piece as well, I had a few people approach and say, oh, we'd much rather have pickleball available. So I know that that's something that's been growing in popularity, and it's also been out there for quite a few people, a request by quite a few people. So I understand where you're coming from, Joe. But to me, I know it's been a request, so I can see the benefit in doing something like that.
Okay. When this was brought to me, Donnie Peschel called me up and asked if there was any way that they wanted us to go 50% for, you know, 50,000. I told him that would be a decision that would have to go to council, even this. He understood that. They, looking back in some of the history, I can't remember the year that those tennis courts actually got moved, but the city had paid up to I think it was $57,000 toward moving them tennis courts down there in adjoining with a school. And since that's been done, the city hasn't contributed one penny toward maintaining or doing anything down there that I know of. 25,000 to me, with the growing popularity of pickleball, I figured we'd be able to find it in the budget. At that time, I had talked to Ben, and he thought that maybe if we didn't do the land pride, we'd be able to handle that.
Which we just passed.
Which at the last meeting, which I wasn't here, it ended up getting ordered.
Yeah.
Plus 25,000 compared to putting another request for new pickleball courts, or us guys doing it and having it come to us, and ended up the city paying 300 to 400,000 to put in new courts. This 25,000, I think, is kind of like money we probably should have been putting toward helping out the school since we initially moved them down there. So I'm actually thinking there's other places we can find 25,000
I agree with you, Mayor.
right now, so.
I've got friends that play pickleball, and I know they're always bugging me about when are we going to have a court for it, so I'm for it. But we have to find the money in the budget to do it. But
Right.
I agree with you, Mayor.
And we're going through budget right now, and I know there's some money in one area that
Yeah.
hasn't been used
Mhm.
to the status it was, so that easily could have,
Finance Committee met today, and we have a lot of work ahead of us.
yes, I know,
So
for next year's budget. But we're looking at this year's budget, I know there's one fund that hasn't been used hardly at all.
So I mean, I certainly understand the, public benefit of the pickleball court and helping contribute that. My daughter played tennis last year. I mean, I see the benefits of those things, but I don't know that we just pick it up right here when it's not budgeted, not planned. Should this be part of a broader conversation as it relates to shared facilities, where the school's using, we're using, and we can find a way to discuss and say, hey, what is that future shared maintenance plan or contributions on, the ball fields that, the junior high play on, or, the hockey arena and stuff where the high school team uses, and some of those things. Is there conversations that should be part of a larger discussion versus just, well, we need it now type of thing, versus planning for the future and what that would look like?
And I understand that, because I'm sure, Mr. Peschel and I have been talking that we need to sit down and go over a lot of stuff, because there's a lot more stuff happening at their level and our level that we should be holding hands on this. And I think this is a step in the right direction to help.
I'm going to add a little background what Warren had said on the tennis courts. So back in the late 90s, the city actually had raised money and had funds set aside because we were going to build 3 tennis courts up by Tower View Field, up by the arena. Well, then the school got into the project of the elementary and the auditorium, and that's where their tennis courts were. So they had to move their 3 tennis courts. So we went together and we gave them, we paid for, we were going to pay for 3 that we were going to put up there to put by the school, and the school was going to pay for 3. Ultimately, we ended up with 5. So 3 plus 3 equals 5. It's new math. And so that's how that happened, is of the 5 original courts down there, our contribution was the 3 we were going to put up by arena, and their contribution was the courts that they had to replace. And so that was kind of how we got together on that. And then as a result of that, they were to be open to the public. And so that was how but they were still on school property. And that's how that started.
Okay. Any other discussion? Otherwise, I will look for a motion.
Well, Vicky, are there places you think that to be able to do something that would be able to find something in the budget at this point in time?
I sat in that same budget meeting with Joe and Heidi today. I guess if you decide that you want to do it, we don't have a choice but to find it somewhere. I mean, there's obviously not a line item. Warren said he has some ideas. There's not a specific line item that, I know in the parks budget, we're full because we didn't spend a couple line items because we overspent in other areas. So we kind of look at the bottom line in that budget. So, because I looked through that more carefully again today to see if there was a way we could pull some of that out of there. And there really isn't in the park itself. I know maybe there's some other funds that it could happen in. I don't know, Warren, what was your idea that you were?
Well, we're getting toward the end of the year, and I know you had stated we had one fund that had only had spent like $500, and we budgeted $33,000. So it's like, okay, there's a gap. Somewhere along the line, it didn't get used. It was put in to be used and it never did, so why can't we take it from there and,
I think as long as you keep it within the general fund,
right, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we do it then.
Okay, I have a motion by Diane. Do I have a second? Chair will second it. Any more discussion?
I would just say, just because the money's there doesn't mean we have to spend it.
Any other discussion?
I guess my consideration was, I was going to suggest we table it for a meeting, just to even have a little bit of time to look at, specifically have a chance to look at the budget from last year and see where things were at, to get a handle on seeing if there was something that was workable.
I think we have to vote on
Yep.
the motion
We gotta vote
before
on
we
this
can.
motion beforehand, but, depending on which way this goes.
I think ultimately, the public would appreciate it. It's a burn on our end to try to come up with the money, but I think for 25,000, the public would understand and appreciate us putting forth the effort in conjunction with the school.
There's quite a few people that play pickleball. I was surprised.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries 4 in favor, 1 against, no abstentions. Consent agenda, schedule of claims. We have unpaid claims of $84,125.64. And July checks, paid claims / payroll, $607,241.17. Is there any questions about the consent calendar as posted? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Informational items, budget workshop, August 28th, and the public hearing on the improvements for the 25-26 project, September 11th. Any questions about those?
I did reach out after the last meeting that you were absent, knowing that the students that are coming up for this school year wished to attend some of our budget meetings. The schedule that we chose doesn't align with all those students, but the request was that we have it recorded, if the council's okay with that. That would be available to that student to view after.
Okay, that would be, Vicky, I know you talked to Stacy about
I'll just put a USB in and push the button.
some of them
and it'll
dates
record.
already, so that was already covered, so. Okay, anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Joe, seconded by Diane. Call the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.